What a view!
This is incredible.
An Ontario County nonprofit.
Overlook Horizon high-altitude balloons.
3, 2, 1, launch.
Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Good morning, everybody. It is 8:50 in the morning here, Sunday, March 15th, 2020, and we're live for SpaceX next Starlink mission here. We are just getting up and running here. We still got about, oh, wow, that's loud. We got just about a little over 30 minutes until launch today, so we've got plenty of time to chat it up. SpaceX will go live about 15 minutes prior to their launch, but this is what I'm calling Starlink 5. I don't know if that's correct or not. There's a little bit of confusion. Actually, I don't think anybody agrees on it, really, to be honest. This is the 6th Starlink launch, full Starlink launch. We had like the Tintin A and Tintin B launch. We're not even counting that one. Then we had the original big batch of Starlink launches. Those were what people are calling 0.9 or version 0.9 satellites. It was kind of their first iteration that they launched and put up there. We're not counting that either, or we're calling that launch or Starlink 0, maybe. At least this is how it's going in my head. Some people call that Starlink 1. I'm calling it Starlink 0 because I'm not counting it at all. This is... then since then, we've got our version 1.0 satellites, and those we've done 4 of those so far, and today will be the 5th launch of the version 1.0 satellites. So that's where the Starlink 5 comes from, even though technically this is the 6th full batch of Starlink satellite launches. Super confusing. We need to all get on the same page on this. I don't even think that SpaceX doesn't put out official, I guess, terminology for what this launch is, you know, if this is Starlink 6 or Starlink 5, but they do, in all their documentation, they do say this is the 6th Starlink, or this is the 6th launch of Starlink satellites, I think is the way they word it. So, should this be Starlink 6? Do we stay with Starlink 5? I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm going with Starlink 5, only because it fits in line with the numbering scheme for my last set of live broadcasts, and it would be weird to go Starlink 4 and then right to Starlink 6. So, I don't know. You guys let me know, you chime in. I did put a poll out on Twitter a couple days ago, and it seems like the results were kind of all over the board. I think the winner was just Starlink. Everybody just said, forget about Starlink 5, Starlink 6. Everybody just said, just call it Starlink. That seems confusing to me, because how do you tell the difference between, if I want to talk about 3 Starlink launches ago, I can say Starlink 2. I can't just say Starlink 3 times ago. I don't know. But that was the winner. Second place was Starlink 5, and then Starlink V1.0-L5 was third place, and then Starlink 6, I think, actually came in last place. So Sebi Time Waster says 5.5. I like it. Good compromise. So hello to everybody. I see all the comments. Where's my mouse cursor? There it is. So I see everybody in the comments here. We got to switch over to this one here, and we can chat it up and see what's happening. So I see a whole bunch of our regulars, some new people as well. Deborah, Sebi's over in the YouTube chat. First Man, Monster Trio. Hello to everybody. Thanks for joining in. John Chorney says the future historians will thank you. I don't know if they're going to listen to me, but I'm making my mark. I'm putting it out there where I stand. And then over on the Periscope, I see Geo, Dan, and not much activity over on Facebook or Twitch or Mixer yet, but we are live there as well. At least I'm not getting any comments from there, hopefully. That's always the thing that worries me. So Monster Trio brings up kind of a good point here. Says, why do they deploy the satellites at T plus 1448? I like the longer coast phase. So if you don't know what he's talking about, this was actually new on the last Starlink mission that we were at. So today, the plan for today, why don't we pull up the press kit so everybody can see what we're talking about. So here's a press kit for today, and in particular, here, let's zoom it in. We're looking at the timeline here for today. And the difference here being, starting with the last launch, what we're calling Starlink 4. They are now deploying the satellites at 14 minutes and 48 seconds after launch. Prior to that, the first 3 missions, they actually launched the satellites into orbit. They would go for this super long coast phase, and they wouldn't deploy the satellites until about 45 minutes after launch. I think it was like 48 minutes, if I recall correctly. But it was a long time after launch. They do this long coast phase, a quick circularization burn, and then they would deploy the satellites. But now they're going at this 14-minute mark, and essentially what they're doing is they're lofting it into a higher orbit, a more elliptical orbit, and then they're going to use the satellites' onboard thrusters to actually do the circularization instead of doing that with the Falcon 9's upper stage. So what was I going to say on that topic? Yeah, so the reason that we get that they're getting that up there, they feel that this is going to be a more efficient way of using their thrusters. They're taking a lot of that energy that they would spend over weeks getting it up to that higher orbit and expending that now with that Falcon 9 rocket instead. So yeah, that's the new thing for the last 2 launches. Lost in transition. Hello, thanks again for covering this launch. Thanks for joining in. I could not find the Facebook Live link, but yeah, we should be there. It says I'm live. It says we have viewers. The Starlink series. So that's what we're looking at for timeline for today. It'll be a pretty quick broadcast. Let's look at weather for today, because this is actually going to be really good for today, at least assuming there's no other issues. But weather is looking fantastic. We only have a 10% chance of violating weather constraints, which essentially means that we're 90% go for today. So that's fantastic. The big issue that they're looking at, it's not even really a big issue. Can't really call it a big issue for only 10%, but is a cumulus cloud rule. So they don't launch through big giant cumulus clouds. But only 10% chance that that's going to happen, so I would say we're in good shape for launching today. And let's go over here and we'll look at Raul's map, because he does such a great job putting these Google Maps together so you get an idea of where the launch is happening. This is pretty much the same as all the Starlink missions, but we're launching to the northeast from Cape Canaveral, Florida, right down here, launching. And we are doing a recovery. Come on now, keep up with me, computer. There we go. We are doing a recovery, full-scale recovery today. So we're getting the full gamut. We're going to do first stage booster recovery and payload fairing recovery. So all the ships are out at sea right now. We'll get a drone ship landing. This will be the 5th time. This is crazy. 5th time that this booster has flown. So this booster that's flying today has flown 4 times already. This will be the 5th time it's flown. This will be the first booster to fly 5 times. And the payload fairings are also reused. They were previously used on another Starlink mission back in May of last year. So we've got reused booster, reused payload fairings, and they're going to try to recover those again and be able to reuse those once again. So drone ship landing, and hopefully we have a good one this time. It was Starlink 4 that we had a little bit of trouble on the landing last time, and that was when they introduced that new higher apogee with the satellites coming in. It's coming back a little bit faster, a little more energy it's got to pull off, although that I shouldn't really allude to that was the problem. That really wasn't the problem, but it is stuff that they have to deal with. The problem, actually, according to Elon Musk on Twitter, was that there were wind levels that were beyond the predicted levels at the landing zone. So last time they missed the drone ship landing. If you recall, it landed off to the side. We just saw a little bit of smoke and mist and everything as it crashed into the water. According to Elon Musk, it was because of the winds at the landing zone were beyond what were predicted, and the Falcon 9 booster was not able to navigate those successfully, detected an anomaly, and chose to land in the water. So the way this kind of works, I need some sort of like animation or demonstration to show this, but generally, as the booster's coming in, it's intentionally overshooting the drone chip. And it's not until that final landing bird in the final moments that it straightens out and comes in and lands on the drone chip. So if anything goes wrong during the process or the engines don't light, it's not going to crash into the booster. If the engines don't light, it goes right past it and lands in the water. And if anything, even if the engines do light, if anything goes wrong and the Falcon 9 says, hey, I quit, I want out of here, it will just navigate itself and continue down the ballistic trajectory into the water there. And it does the same thing, or same kind of idea, except instead of overshoot, it undershoots on return to launch site landings. So return to launch site landings, it undershoots the landing, and then the grid fins will actually push it and kind of loft it over to the landing site, assuming that everything is going well. So those are some of the things, and that's unfortunately what we saw last time was an unintentional / intentional miss of the drone chip. Hopefully we don't have that today. Greetings from Kingston, Georgia, says Hired Gun. Hello, Kingston, Georgia. Hopefully this will be the booster's 5th landing as well. Yeah, exactly. We want to see a good landing today. All right, let me get out of this map here. Oh, I suppose. Come on now. There we go. I was going to pull up because I started scrambling trying to do this as we were going live. But SpaceX has been getting their comms loop. So usually they do 2 broadcasts for this. They do a mission control audio, and then they do the regular one that we launched. And they've been putting the mission control audio one up very early. Like it went live the same time we went live. I hear no audio, but I'm going to keep that up. There's nothing to see. I mean, this is it. It's like an animation of the Falcon 9, but this is from their mission control audio. So I'm going to let this play at least for a little while, and we'll see if anything comes across on there. I've not listened to the mission control audio this early into the broadcast. Usually I would start listening to it just a few minutes before launch. So again, today we're launching 60 Starlink satellites. This will be very similar to all the previous missions that they've had for Starlink. And again, at that 14-minute mark, they will deploy them, and they deploy them in that little fan motion. So they will twirl the upper stage. Essentially, they go end over end with it, and not very fast, but enough that when they release the tension rods that are holding the Starlink satellites in place, once they release those, they kind of just fling them off the end. And that little bit of a spin as they're flinging them off causes them all to separate, because they're all coming off at just slightly different velocities, and they will separate gradually, and then they'll use their onboard thrusters to adjust from there. Sebi says he noticed the same. Noticed the same. What happened? Hey, Columbia. Dan's over on Periscope. Cannot wait to use Starlink. Should be awesome. Yeah, it's a little bit of that we should clear up on this. We kind of say it every time, too. I know Sebi already knows this, but because he brought it up, I'm going to mention it anyways, is that we are still a long way off before you're going to be able to use the Starlink internet. I can't wait to use it either. I would love to switch to Starlink internet, but we're not there yet. It's gonna be a couple of years before we get that far out. So they got to get just to be minimally operational. They're still looking at 800 satellites in orbit to be minimally operational. And right now we're at about 240 satellites. After today, we're gonna be at about 300 satellites, and we still got to get up to 800. So we got a number of launches that could still happen by the end of this year, assuming this whole coronavirus thing doesn't affect the space industry. We'll see. we'll see. Seems to be affecting everything for good reason, but it's been kind of crazy. But yeah, we could still get up to 800 launched this year. They're going pretty quickly. We're up to 300 already. But we got to get to about 4,000 or 5,000, somewhere in that range, to be considered like operational, like full capacity, or ideal capacity operational. And then full capacity is like 12,000 satellites in orbit. And it's a lot of that would be like on orbit spares and full coverage areas everywhere. And so there's some extra padding built in there, closer satellites so that the latency comes down and you'd switch between satellites sooner instead of waiting, and trying to connect to a satellite that's still way low on the horizon. You could have, potentially a dozen satellites that are all within view, and you're just going to connect to whatever the closest one is. So that's full capabilities or full capacity, 12,000 satellites. 5,000 is operational. 800 is like minimum to even do any sort of service. Sarman wants to know how long till liftoff. Well, here's the countdown clock. That's my countdown clock, not the official SpaceX countdown clock, but that's pretty accurate. It's about 30 seconds off because that's counting down to 9:22 a.m. Eastern time. But the launch is actually 9:22 and 31 seconds, 32 seconds, 30 something seconds. So I'm not counting the extra 30 seconds there. So that's pretty close to the actual time. It's about 30 seconds off. Couple of stats for today. This is 91st SpaceX launch overall, 83rd Falcon 9 launch, 27th Falcon 9 Block 5 launch. It seems like not too long ago we were talking about the beginning of Block 5, but that was May 2018, so we're almost 2 years into Falcon 9 Block 5. So this is the 27th Falcon 9 Block 5 launch. Fifth flight of B-1048, that's our booster. So this is the fifth time that this is flown, which is insane to me that we're reflying boosters 5 times. The Block 5s are meant to fly up to 10 times before they have to have a little bit of extended refurbishment, but this is only number 5, so it's got room to go still. Hopefully this will be the 51st landing of a Falcon 9 first stage. I shouldn't say necessarily just Falcon 9, of a Falcon first stage, because the 51st would include Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. The 20th SpaceX launch from LC-39A. So this is a little bit different because it's launching from 39A instead of Pad 40, which is a little bit further to the south. But this is 39A, which is where they'll launch Crew Dragon from. They launch a lot of the cargo. They've launched, well, actually, I guess the Cargo Dragons for the most part are launching from 40. But Crew Dragon and Falcon Heavy will launch from 39A. That's the big launch pad where Apollo, the space shuttle, they launch from there. Sixth SpaceX launch for this year, and the second Falcon 9 for this month. We were just here, just a couple of, I don't know what, that was like a week ago. We were just here for CRS 20. So they're cranking them out. Better get them out now, because I imagine, we haven't really talked about this too much, but I imagine, oh, it looks like SpaceX is live here. We'll put that up and get ready, but I imagine there's going to be some sort of impact to the space industry from this coronavirus stuff, because, let's see, we want to move this. Hold on, we're going to move this over here, and we're going to move this over here as well. But yeah, so I imagine there's going to be some sort of impact with the coronavirus, just because, I mean, the number of people that they have to assemble, particularly at like mission control, is pretty high. And I mean, the whole point of this, all this social distancing and everything else, is to try to avoid big gatherings and things like that, to try to flatten the curve of spikes in cases for coronavirus. So it'll be interesting to see if already Kennedy Space Center has shut down and said they're no longer going to be operational. Obviously, we have a launch today, so we're okay. But, you know, considering that they do get a lot of people congregating in one spot in mission control, it'll be interesting to see if that starts to affect them. It's already affected me. my work, that my office is shut down for at least the next week. We're all 100% mandatory work from home. We've got our schools are shut down here in New York, so we got a lot of things that are shut down. All my plans for this weekend, I wasn't going to live broadcast this because I had plans for this weekend, but those all got canceled. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on with all this coronavirus stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if it affects the space industry. Will we have delays because of that? Will it affect Crew Dragon, which is supposed to be May 7th? Is that going to end up being pushed out or delayed because these groups, can't meet and can't congregate, can't get together? I don't know. We haven't heard anything yet, but it's possible that could have an impact. All right, so I see some questions. I'll probably have to get to them in just a minute because it looks like SpaceX is going live. So we're going to switch over to their broadcast, and we'll listen into them and see what they have to say as they're getting started here.
Good morning. It's Sunday, March 15th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:23 a.m. Eastern launch from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
9:23.
Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 6th Starlink mission and our 6th mission overall this year in 2020. For those of you who aren't familiar, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. Today's mission will also be the first time we are flying a booster for the 5th time. Most recently, this booster flew on our 2nd Starlink mission back in November. In fact, the first missions of 20
What happened?
in Falcon 9s.
Come on now.
Just like our first stages, we are also starting to reuse our fairings. Today, we are flying a reused fairing, which previously flew on our first Starlink mission.
Come on now. What?
We'll also get a brief update on our Starship program and some of the latest developments that production line. With that, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this morning.
Hello, my name is Michael Andrews, and I'm a supply chain supervisor here at SpaceX. You're looking at a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket, our 70-meter, 2-stage, liquid-fueled launch vehicle getting ready for liftoff from our 39A launch site at Florida's Kennedy Space Center.
We're getting so much latency
While
here.
we have some time, let's discuss the components of that vehicle. The bottom 2/3 of it is our first stage. It accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines. And today we'll be attempting to recover that first stage for our time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. It's currently stationed about 350 nautical miles northeast of the Cape. And above that first stage is our second stage. It has a single Merlin engine known as our Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, and it ignites after first stage separation. The second stage will carry our batch of 60 Starlink satellites to an altitude of about 440 kilometers above the Earth's surface. From there, they will use their individual propulsion systems to move up to their operational altitude over time of 550 kilometers. The Falcon 9 you see on the pad there has been loading propellants since T-minus 35 minutes. As a reminder, we use a hybrid mix of rocket-grade kerosene, known as RP1, and super-chilled liquid oxygen, known as LOX, to power the Falcon 9. Currently, our RP1 is nearly fully loaded on the first stage, that bottom 2/3 of the vehicle, and for our second stage, it's fully loaded with RP1. The LOX loading is underway on both stages still, and that will actually continue to be topped off until the last minute of our countdown. And at the very top of the rocket is our stack of 60 Starlink satellites. They're safely enclosed within the 17-foot diameter payload fairing. It's that point cone you see at the very top of the rocket. This protects the payload from
stuttering
aerothermal
is going to kill
loads,
me here.
heating, and any kind of contamination during ascent. Now, once we reach the vacuum of space, we no longer need those fairings, and we jettison those 2 halves as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. As we have in the past, we'll be attempting to recover those 2 pieces again with our 2 recovery ships, Miss Tree and Miss Chief. They're currently positioned in the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of North Carolina. In terms of weather, we had some fog at Kennedy this morning. You can see it's pretty
Ooh,
much
look at this
dissipated.
camera angle.
Weather conditions are nominal both at ground and upper altitudes. The Air Force range is prepared to support today's mission. So with that, the vehicle, our satellites, weather, and range are all looking green for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
As I
Alright, hold
mentioned
on.
at the
So
top
I'm gonna reload this just because it's driving me crazy that it's. We're gonna go right to the YouTube website, reload this because just the skipping is driving me crazy.
Falcon 9 booster. And if we land it successfully, it will mark the 51st recovery since we started landing our boosters back in December of 2015. Right now, our turnaround time to refurbish a booster for reflight is roughly 8 weeks. Long term, we hope to continue to drive that turnaround time down even further, with rocket launches looking more similar to commercial air travel, where planes get basic checkouts, get refueled, and then head back out. Reusability is core to our mission here at SpaceX, which brings me to our efforts underway in Boca Chica, Texas. If you've been following our progress, you know SpaceX is currently building and testing its next generation spacecraft called Starship. The site has changed dramatically in just a year as we build up our production line.
Yes.
The local team has executed a variety of tests designed to push the limits of the vehicle. Next up are a series of static fire and short flight tests with our serial number 3 test article, and longer flights with our serial number 4. But ramping up our Starship and Raptor production line is what matters most. The design goal for Starship is 3 flights per day on average, which equates to roughly 100 flights per year at greater than 100 tons per flight. This means every 10 ships would yield 1 megaton per year to orbit. This is a significant effort, and we are looking for highly skilled engineers and welders to help us make this a reality. If you're interested in joining the team, please take a look at spacex.com/careers.
We're currently only 6 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now
sales
moving
pitch
into
there
its
is what it
final
was.
stages of the countdown. At T-minus 7 minutes, our engine chill process began. This is where we allow a small amount of that super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine turbopumps prior to the full flow of LOX into the vehicle. This helps us avoid any kind of thermal shocks to our system. Liquid oxygen is also what's creating the white clouds you might see around Falcon 9. We continue to load that super chilled LOX into the stage until just before liftoff. And when that liquid oxygen comes into contact with the ambient air around it, it boils and creates the clouds surrounding the vehicle that you see on your screen. The cradle, or the arms that you see near the top of the vehicle, will begin to open around T-minus 4.5 minutes, followed by the transporter erector, retracting away from the rocket, starting around T-minus 4 minutes. This is only a couple degrees that it moves, so it may be visually imperceptible, but it's enough room for our Falcon 9 to clear the transporter erector during liftoff. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage right behind it at T-minus 2 minutes. And at T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup mode. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and we humans are no longer in the loop. The Starlink payload continues to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket at the moment. Weather's looking good, and the range is still green for launch. So with that, there's nothing left to do except listen in to the last few minutes of the terminal countdown.
Yeah, one thing that I just absolutely love is this view from 39A. I mean, the black cladding that they added to the fixed service structure there just looks so sleek, in my opinion. I bet most people would agree. I mean, that looks pretty awesome. They've got the microphones at the pad there, so you can hear a lot of the venting. We'll hear a lot of the action going on. I'm going to leave that up and running so you can see a lot of the liquid oxygen venting. The transport erector there is getting ready. You can see the clamp coming off. It's getting ready to retract back.
Those clamps up on the transport erector have begun to open. And if you watch closely, maybe you can see it begin to retract.
Yeah, so that's going to retract just a little bit here. We'll have one last big vent of the liquid oxygen. That happens at about 1.5 minutes.
The process has just begun. If you watch it closely,
there it goes.
Behind that liquid oxygen that's boiling to regular oxygen.
I like Neil says, it's breathing, it's alive. I know it's kind of amazing how you know, all the processes that are in place and that are happening. Plus, you can see not only are you getting the liquid oxygen vent, but you're getting a ton of condensation that's occurring just from the liquid, the cold liquid oxygen
Stage 1 lock slow
on the body
out.
of the rocket there. I'm just watching this. These are some of the best views that we've had in a while from right up close to the Falcon 9. And just keep in mind, this is where they're going to launch Crew Dragon from. So these are the kind of views that we're going to get for Crew Dragon come May 7th. So we should get some up-close views of the Crew Dragon capsule, just like this, getting ready with astronauts on board.
So
Like, it's crazy.
RP1 loading and LOX loading on our first stage has completed. We're waiting for the LOX loading on our second stage to complete. And then after that, the startup mode call out.
The big final event, minute and a half.
T-minus 2 minutes to liftoff.
Stage 2 lock slow closed out.
You can see on the left side a little bit of the sound suppression water system starting to be activated right here by my head. Taking a shower over here.
Ground gas closeouts.
Last time I was down here, I stood on the pad and tried to ask them like what. I'll be able to talk over this.
Falcon 9 from startup.
Here we go, under a minute. You can see the rain birds. Those are those 4 black posts that stick up pretty much right here next to my hand here.
Go for launch.
Right here. Rain birds, that'll be the water suppression, sound suppression system. Those will activate just a few seconds before launch. The amount of water that comes out of those
30 seconds.
is insane. There's also water that comes out of the actual trench itself in the
15
pad.
seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Oh, uh-oh.
Disregard.
Uh-oh.
We have an abort.
Abort. Oh, no. Abort at T0.
Launch is running.
Wow, we have not had an abort in a long time. No launch today. Got an abort. Automatic abort right at T0. Obviously, no idea what
As you
happened.
may have
but
heard, we had an abort condition just prior to liftoff. We're going to listen to the nets, hopefully have more information and share it with you soon.
yeah, that was crazy. Fired up the engines. Must have been some kind of off nominal condition, either with fuel flow or the engine itself.
So launch abort on engine high power.
Engine high power. I don't exactly know what that means, but yeah, that might. So as Sebi mentioned over on the YouTube channel, that might be the first abort that we've seen after startup. I can't recall a time when the Falcon 9 has actually ignited the engines and aborted, which is also still kind of an engineering marvel as well. The fact that They just ignited those engines. Their computer systems evaluated everything that was happening all in a fraction of a second and said, nope, just kidding, we're not launching, and aborted the whole sequence before the hold down clamps and everything else gave way and it took off. But
as you just heard on our countdown nets, we had a condition regarding engine power that caused us to abort today's launch. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally, but keep in mind, the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There are 1,000 ways a launch can go wrong, and only one way it can go right. Given that we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that just looks even slightly off, we'll stop the countdown. Overall, the vehicle appears to be in good health, but that will end our launch attempt for today. Please stay in touch with our social media and web platforms for that next launch opportunity. Hopefully you'll join us again for that next attempt. Until then, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
interesting, and they're out. Yeah, so this was, I mean, it was pretty much an instantaneous launch window, so no opportunity to try again today. But that was kind of crazy. One thing I did want to clarify just from what he said there is he said, you know, if the team sees anything out of the ordinary, we'll stop the launch, which is true up until a point. This is an automated abort. This was not done by humans or team members at all. This was an automated abort by the Falcon 9's onboard computer systems. So this is crazy. The fact that it just aborted. We're going to watch that again. We got to replay that. So here's the replay. Coming down to the wire, this was completely unexpected. Turn the volume back up again.
T-minus 15 seconds.
And we can listen.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Disregard.
I like
we
that.
have an abort.
Launch abort is running.
I like that liftoff and then disregard. We're gonna watch it again.
2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Disregard. We have an abort.
Launch abort is running.
Yeah, so what that means for the launch going forward is that the next attempt will be tomorrow, and I believe it's around the same time.
As you may have heard, we had an abort.
All right, so we already heard him talk about that. But yeah, that was that's kind of crazy. So they'll try again tomorrow, assuming that it's nothing crazy. But we got to figure out what the big issue was. So obviously, you know, they ignited the engines, they let it run, and then, I mean, it's all within a fraction of a second. But generally, the way that works, and the way it worked today, they ignite the engines, they come up to full thrust, and in that fraction of a second, they're measuring the fuel flow, the engine performance, and if anything's off nominal, it cuts it off, and that's what happened today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Disregard. We have an abort.
Launch abort is running.
I imagine that kind of surprised them too, because I don't think we've had an abort this late in the countdown ever for SpaceX, at least not for the Falcon 9. So they'll have to check over all those systems and figure out exactly what the problem was. Also, keep in mind this is the 5th time this booster has flown, so you know there could be some issues potentially with that, with the reusability there, you know, just stuff that it's the first time they've flown a booster for 5 times, so there might be a component on there that maybe needs to be replaced. So they're going to figure out what that is. potentially could turn it around in 24 hours, but if it's something bigger, we could be looking at, 2 or 3 days of delays.
Launch abort on engine high power.
So they did say that the launch abort was for engine high power. I don't exactly know what that means. That's all they said on the net, is that launch abort was due to engine high power. So we'll have to check and see. I have not seen anything. I'm trying to see if there's any news on the Twitter world yet from some of the people that are down there at the press site. Yeah, all it is just abort related to engine power. That's all we have. Crazy. That was unexpected for me. Yeah, I don't see anything else yet. So it's Patty wants to know. So it's canceled. Yeah. So we're canceled for today. It is definitely scrubbed for today. The earliest attempt, next attempt will be tomorrow. Will be the next try at this.
As you just heard on our countdown nets, we had a condition regarding engine power that caused us to abort today's launch. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally. But keep in mind, the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There are 1,000 ways a launch can go wrong, and only one way it can go right. Given that we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that just looks even slightly off, we'll stop the countdown. Overall, the vehicle appears to be in good health, but that will end our launch attempt for today. Please stay in touch with our social media and web platforms for that next launch opportunity. Hopefully you'll join us again for that next attempt. Until then, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, so a little bit of confusion that I wanted to clear up that
Liftoff.
we'll back up a little bit and talk about.
7, 6, 5.
Let's watch again.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
So
Disregard.
right there, all the
We have an abort.
smoke that you're seeing, which is actually mostly steam, means that the engines, at least some of the engines, did ignite. So we had some sort of engine power issue. So that could mean that not all 9 Merlin engines came up. So maybe one of the engines didn't ignite. Maybe there were a couple engines that didn't ignite. Maybe only one engine ignited. But at least one engine ignited, because that's where we get all this steam from and the smoke and everything else. So we got at least one ignition there. But potentially either you have some sort of fuel flow issue that caused the engines not to be able to come up to the proper thrust. You may also have maybe one of the engines didn't ignite, or multiple engines didn't ignite. You could have, maybe not all of, maybe not enough fuel was being delivered to the engines, so they weren't performing their thrust that they were at, or maybe they got a quick burst of fuel and then something happened and the line. We have no idea. So there's a whole bunch of options of why this didn't happen, but it was some sort of issue related to engine power. Yeah, and I do like she goes, lift off. Disregard. Is that a fail? I wouldn't necessarily call it a fail. I would call it a scrub. So, getting to space is hard. There are a million things that can go wrong, and like he said, there's a million things that can go wrong, and there's only one way that it can go right. So everything has to be perfect in order to launch. If something's not perfect, they're going to abort. I actually wouldn't call this a fail at all, because this is exactly what's supposed to happen. A fail would be if it launched and then it exploded shortly after launch because the systems didn't detect this anomaly prior to liftoff. So the systems did exactly what they're supposed to do. They detected the anomaly, they cut off the launch sequence, saved the rocket, saved the payload, it lives to fly another day. So they can fly it again tomorrow or the next day, depending on what they have to replace. So I would definitely not call this a failure. I would just say that it was scrubbed. Nope, it's not really any different than if it was scrubbed a minute before launch due to some sort of anomaly. I mean, it happens with rocket companies all the time. SpaceX actually has a really good track record of launching on time, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, the most important thing is that it launches, period. And so having this sort of abort right at T0, not really that big of a deal. Surprising, but not a big deal because they'll fly again. They'll figure out exactly what's wrong with it, and all the systems did exactly what they were supposed to do. Let's see what happened. Mary wants to know what happened. Yeah, so we had an abort. This is the abort sequence. We'll play it again.
15 seconds.
We had an abort right at T0.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Disregard. We have an abort.
Launch abort is running.
So yeah, there was an abort right at T0, just fractions of a second before liftoff. And so it was due to, according to the nets, due to some sort of engine power issue. We don't know exactly what that is, but like I mentioned earlier, could be an engine.
As you may have heard,
engine
an abort condition just
didn't
prior to
ignite.
liftoff.
Fuel might have
Going to
not
listen to
flown.
events, hopefully have more information and share it with us.
According to SpaceX on Twitter, standing down today, standard auto abort triggered due to out of family data during engine power check. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we've been saying. That's a fancy way of saying that their sensors
On engine high power.
picked up a reading that was not within the normal range. So that's the out of family data that they're speaking about. So their sensors picked up or were reading something that was out of range for their nominal range for their engine power. So and it said during the engine power check. So that's that check that happens just fractions of a second before liftoff. They ignite the engines, bring them up to thrust, and they're checking, making sure that the engines are ignited, fuel is flowing, thrust is at where it's supposed to be, and they do all those power checks just prior to liftoff, and all within a fraction of a second. And obviously something there was outside of the acceptable range. Abort. Matt Parkinson says the space lobster gave the rocket the coronavirus. Well, it's most certainly due to the space lobster, that's for sure. Our friendly space lobster here I'm sure had something to do with this abort today. We don't know what yet, but I'm sure I don't know if it's the coronavirus that but I'm sure the space lobster had something to do with it.
As you just heard on our countdown nets, we had a condition regarding engine power that caused us to abort today's launch. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally, but keep in mind the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There are 1,000 ways a launch can go wrong and only one way it can go right. Given that we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that just looks even slightly off, we'll stop the countdown. Overall, the vehicle appears to be in good health, but that will end our launch attempt for today. Please stay in touch with our social media and web platforms for that next launch opportunity. Hopefully you'll join us again for that next attempt. Until then, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess this is going to be kind of it's going to be pretty short here. So we're not going to have a landing today. We're not going to have a launch. Not going to have a landing. We're not going to have fairing recovery. We got nothing today other than just an abort. We just keep watching over and over again. The guy on Periscope, says that the check engine light is on. Most certainly, I'm sure there is certainly at least one check engine light that is on in mission control right now. Surprising. unexpected, but rather have this. Rather have that abort than some sort of kaboom.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Disregard. We have an abort.
Launch abort is running.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of craziness that we had that late abort there. So I was checking to see if there was any more information, but we'll take a look at the Twitter world here.
As you may have heard, we had an abort condition just prior to liftoff. We're going to listen to the nets, hopefully have more information and share it with you soon.
Yeah, well, that's a bummer. No launch.
Onboard on engine high power.
No launch for today. So we're... let's see. Pause this. We'll come back a little bit later, but we're going to look at the Twitter world here for a little bit. See what the Twitter machine has to say, but the biggest thing is that SpaceX announced that they're... let's see, go back to here. SpaceX announced standing down for today was pretty much an instantaneous launch window, so that makes sense. They got no opportunity to relaunch today. They probably also have to replace a component of some sort or figure out exactly what went wrong, so they're going to do that. Next opportunity... the next possible opportunity is tomorrow, but they did say they will announce the next launch date opportunity once confirmed on the range, and that's a number of things. They do have a backup date tomorrow, but it sounds like, well, this is only a few minutes after they did the abort, so they got to figure out what went wrong, replace what components need replacing, figure out exactly what happened, and then they'll have to set a new launch date. If it's something quick, could be tomorrow, but sounds like maybe not something quick, but hard to really tell. I mean, this is a quick announcement just minutes after the abort. Let's see what else the rest of the Twitter world here had to say. A lot of people here. We'll retweet this as well. Falcon. Oh, here's Julia Bergeron. Nice photo from Julia here from across the way of the abort. Look at that. That's a really good photo. Falcon 9 just experienced an on-pad abort due to an engine concern. SpaceX now safing the rocket, and the transport erector is vertical again. It's at Julia Bergeron on Twitter. An awesome photo. Bunch of pictures of the abort, some video of the abort, a little Starship update that we had there. That was kind of cool. They did a little Starship update and a little sales pitch to join the team. That's all I've got for news right now. So that's what happened. Still looks cool. It did look pretty cool, actually, even though it wasn't abort. Rather have this than a big kaboom. That's for sure. Let's see. No, Noah says next time try to make it also a live stream. This is a live stream. What do you mean make it a live stream? This is a live stream. This is what we're here for. You missed it. Let's see. Oh, Deborah's wearing her Space Lobster t-shirt. All right, we got new Space Lobster. Did you get a new one, Deborah, or is this one of our one of the OG Space Lobster t-shirts? We got new Space Lobster t-shirts with a new Space Lobster logo. It's our new Space Lobster logo. Really hard to show in the camera, all the lighting and stuff, but I like it. That's gonna be our new Space Lobster mascot. And Ashley said fuel sensor pressure regulator issue. Wow, you got a source for that, Ashley? Because I have not seen anything that I've not seen anything that has been that definitive on what the actual issue was with the engine power. We've seen it was an engine power issue, but that could mean a whole bunch of different things. So I've only seen just an engine power issue. I haven't seen anything specific about whether it's a sensor issue or whether it was, an actual engine itself, fuel flow. Just was on NASA space flight with Ashley. We were just looking at NASA space flight. I don't think it's definitive. Here, we'll pull it up and see. Because I think the let's see. Here, we'll pull it up here. I think the first place you'd see any sort of NASA spaceflight announcement would be from Chris B at NASA Spaceflight, who's the managing editor of NASA Spaceflight. And I don't think we have any news from them here. Yeah, the only thing I have is just an engine high power. You could also look at Chris G, who's also from NASA Spaceflight. I don't know if he's posted anything today. I don't know if he's down there today. I haven't actually, now that I think of it, I don't think I've seen any updates from Chris Gebhardt from NASA Spaceflight. Maybe he's not there today. He's got to be. Oh yeah, he was down there live. Yeah, I haven't seen any live updates from him yet. So I don't know if we're there yet. Kerfliflator on Periscope says, I'm guessing fuel delivery or general engine malfunction, but I don't know what I'm talking about for rockets, though. Yeah, so all we really know for sure at this point that they've published has just been that it's an engine power issue. So yeah, that could mean fuel flow, could mean a problem with the engine itself, any sort of valve or hardware anywhere in the middle there, could be just that one of the engines didn't ignite. Could be a bad sensor. Everything could have been fine, but the sensor was just reading. So there's a whole bunch of possibilities there that we don't know the answer to. But the biggest question now is going to be, when are they going to launch again? Are they going to launch tomorrow? Are they going to try again tomorrow? Is it going to be 2-3 days from now? Like, what are we talking about timeline-wise? Noah says, I've also watched every single video you've made. That's impressive, Noah. I don't know. I'm sure I must have watched every single video we've made, but that just seems like a lot. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Ashley says her stream is buffering. I don't show any. Everything looks good on my end here, Ashley. I got 0 dropped frames here on my side. Yeah, I don't think that's on my end. Maybe it could be on YouTube's end, could be on your end, but I got zero dropped frames over here. Yeah, Kerfluffler on, I love your screen name. Kerfufflator on Periscope says give him a couple days. I kind of agree. I think tomorrow's really optimistic. I don't think it'll be tomorrow now at this point. The other question, are they going to do another static fire? Would they, because they did a static fire for this one a couple days ago and everything went fine, but obviously it did not go fine this time around. So will they do another static fire? Maybe. Usually not, but they might. And so that would mean that we're talking, 2, 3, 4 days down the road before we get this launch in. Let's try to blow up LC-39. Yeah, no, we definitely do not want to blow up LC-39. Could you imagine how devastating that would be, especially with the Crew Dragon launch coming up like literally 2 months from now, less than 2 months from now. We're practically like 6 weeks away. 6 or 7 weeks away from Crew Dragon launch. And can't even imagine. That's actually kind of why I'm surprised a little bit that they're even using 39A at this point for like a Starlink launch. Like, I don't think I would want to touch anything that could affect the Crew Dragon launch at this point. I'd just be like, all right, everything just stay in place until we get to Crew Dragon. You launch off a 40, launch off a slick 40. Could you imagine if that rocket just went kaboom on the launch pad and destroyed 39A 7 weeks before the Crew Dragon capsule is supposed to launch? Because Crew Dragon can't launch from slick 40. It can only launch from 39A. That'd be devastating. That would have been awful. Whew. I don't even want to think about that. If it's an engine problem, I think they need to recheck everything and do another static fire just in case. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, Gregorius, too. I think they might do another static fire for this, especially if it was an engine power issue, and it's not like ground support equipment or anything like that. If it's an engine power issue, I kind of think that they might try to do another static fire before they go to launch. So I think you're talking a couple days before this launches. Yeah, that's my thought. I don't have any more new updates here. We'll check one more time, and then we're probably going to wrap up here. Yep, I got no new updates that I see. Yep, nothing new. Well, it's a bit of a bummer. Turkey versus Corona? I don't know what that means. V Serkan. Not 100% sure what that means. That's V Serkan over on Twitch. Yeah, well, I think we're gonna wrap up here. They're not gonna launch because they don't want to infect aliens with coronavirus. I'm not sure that's in the checklist, but maybe they added it with recent events. Let's hope nobody borrowed any sensors from Boeing. Oh. Tripping fool over on YouTube, getting a little zing over to Boeing. Yeah, Boeing's got some issues to work through. They're gonna be delayed a while before they get their Starliner up. All right, well, I think at this point, I don't know. I don't really have anything left to talk about because we watched the abort. It's not launching today. Engine power issue is all we know at this point. It'll be back hopefully in a couple of days. We'll see it, and we'll see what happened or hear what happened. Probably on Twitter. So if you're not already, I would say make sure you follow me. Oh, you can't even see that little follow thing anymore since I covered it up with the Stream Boss thing there. But they're over here. There's some follow. I guess that's a YouTube, and that one's a Twitter. Yeah. Anyways, I'll put some stuff on the Twitter machine. You guys know how to use the internet. It's a thing. It's on computers. Abort technology has to be very good. Yeah. Think of how precise that had to be in order to abort just a fraction of a second before launch. And that could have been disastrous. Disastrous. Can't say that word. Mouth's getting dry. I've been talking forever. Could have been bad. Let's just put it that way. It could have been very, very bad if that blew up on the pad, especially with Crew Dragon capsule coming up. At least nothing went boom, says Trippin' Fool. Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I think we got to wrap it up here now because I really have nothing left to talk about. We've got an abort. It was kind of cool to see. Kind of a bummer. Glad that it didn't blow up. That's the big, the nice thing about this whole situation. But other than that, we're going to wait and see exactly what went wrong and find out when the next launch date is going to be. I'd expect a couple of days from now. So hopefully see you guys in a couple of days. And I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining in here today for what would have been what I'm calling Starlink 5. It's kind of debatable about what you're going to call it. We talked about that at the beginning of the broadcast, so go back and watch the beginning if you missed that whole naming debate. But what would have been Starlink 5, or the 5th launch of the version 1.0 Starlink operational satellites, that would have been today, but it is no more. Abort at T0, engine power issue. So that's it, everybody. My name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon. Thanks for joining in this morning, and we'll see you in a couple of days. All right, have a good day, everybody. Goodbye.